It's strange how exhausted you can feel when you haven't physically done anything. You've been sitting in the same place for 20 minutes, but your mind has traveled through next week, replayed last year, rehearsed 3 conversations that haven't happened, rewritten 1 conversation that already did, imagined everything that could go wrong, and somehow ended up questioning a decision you were completely comfortable with yesterday. Your body is still. Your mind is running. And perhaps the most frustrating part is that you keep telling yourself to stop thinking. But the harder you try to stop, the louder everything seems to become. One thought creates another. One unanswered question opens 5 more. You remember something embarrassing from years ago. Then you wonder whether someone is upset with you. Then you start thinking about money. Then your future. Then your family. Then something you need to do tomorrow. Then something you should have done yesterday. And before you know it, you're carrying problems from the past, present, and future at the exact same time. That kind of mental exhaustion is difficult to explain to someone who has never experienced it. Because from the outside, nothing appears to be happening. But inside, you're negotiating with possibilities all day. What if this happens? What if that doesn't work? What if I misunderstood? What if I make the wrong choice? What if I should have said something different? What if God is trying to tell me something and I'm missing it? What if this feeling means something? What if I'm not prepared? What if? And somewhere in the middle of all those thoughts, you start believing that if you think hard enough, long enough, carefully enough, you'll finally arrive at peace. But what if that's part of the problem? What if your mind isn't racing because you haven't thought enough? What if it's racing because somewhere along the way, you learn to use thinking as a way of protecting yourself? That's different. Because there is thinking that helps you understand something. And then there is thinking that is really an attempt to make uncertainty disappear. Those 2 things can feel almost identical. You can tell yourself, I'm just trying to figure things out. But sometimes what you're actually trying to do is create an outcome in your head that feels safe enough for you to relax. You're trying to anticipate every possibility so nothing catches you off guard. You're replaying the conversation because you're hoping to find the moment where you could have controlled how the other person responded. You're analyzing the future because uncertainty feels more uncomfortable than mental exhaustion. And when that becomes a pattern, your mind starts believing something very dangerous. If I stop thinking about this, something bad might happen. So you keep going. You revisit the problem while brushing your teeth. You carry it into the shower. You think about it while somebody is talking to you. You bring it to bed. You wake up and check whether the problem still feels unresolved. And if it does, your mind immediately resumes its shift. Maybe you've even had moments where something good was happening, but you couldn't fully enjoy it because part of you was already scanning for what could go wrong. That's the exhausting contradiction. You want peace, but you don't completely trust peace, because peace feels like letting your guard down. And if you're accustomed to solving, anticipating, preparing, fixing, managing, or keeping everything together, slowing down can almost feel irresponsible. There's a woman I imagine sometimes when I think about this. She has a normal evening. Nothing dramatic has happened. She's eaten dinner. She's answered her messages. She's finally in bed. But at 11:47 p.m., she remembers something her supervisor said earlier. It was a simple comment, maybe even harmless, but now she's replaying the tone. Was she disappointed in me? Then she remembers a mistake she made 2 weeks ago. What if they think I'm not good enough? Now she's imagining losing the job. Then she's thinking about how long her savings would last. Then she's imagining having to explain everything to her family. 20 minutes ago, she was remembering one sentence. Now she's mentally unemployed. Nothing outside her bedroom changed. But her body doesn't know that. Her heart is beating faster. Her stomach feels tight. Sleep feels impossible. Because the mind can react to an imagined future as though it has already arrived. That matters. Because sometimes you're not only thinking about a possibility, you're emotionally living through it before it exists. You're grieving things that haven't happened, defending yourself against accusations nobody has made, preparing for rejection that hasn't come, responding to conversations that may never take place, trying to solve problems that don't yet exist. And after doing this for hours, you say, I don't know why I'm so tired. Maybe part of you does know. You've been living several lives at once. The life happening in front of you, and all the possible lives your mind keeps creating. Now, this doesn't mean planning is bad. Thinking ahead is useful. Reflection is useful. Wisdom considers consequences. Scripture certainly doesn't celebrate carelessness. But wisdom and mental hypervigilance are not the same thing. Planning eventually produces a decision. Rumination often produces another lap. That may be one of the questions worth asking yourself. Is this thought taking me somewhere? Or am I simply walking the same mental hallway again? Because you can spend 3 hours thinking without discovering anything new. The details change. The anxiety doesn't. And sometimes there is a deeper fear underneath all of it. The fear that if you cannot predict what happens next, you will not be able to handle it. Sit with that for a moment. Perhaps you're not only afraid of the future. Perhaps you're afraid of who you will be if the future doesn't go according to plan. Will I cope? Will I know what to do? Will I fall apart? Will anybody help me? Will God still be there? That last question can be difficult to admit, because you can sincerely believe in God and still struggle to release your grip on outcomes. You can pray and then spend the next 6 hours mentally supervising the thing you just prayed about. You can tell God, "I trust you," and then immediately return to constructing every possible scenario. That doesn't make your faith fake. It may simply reveal that part of your heart has confused trust with certainty. You want to trust God, but you also want to know what He's going to do. You want peace, but preferably after you receive enough information. You want surrender, as long as surrender comes with a preview. But biblical trust has never meant having complete visibility. Proverbs 3 verses 5 to 6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your path straight." That verse is so familiar that it's easy to hear it without noticing what it actually confronts. Lean not on your own understanding. That doesn't mean your understanding is useless. God gave you a mind. He expects discernment. He expects wisdom. But there is a difference between using understanding and leaning your entire emotional weight on it. Because when understanding becomes the condition for peace, anything you cannot explain becomes a threat. You tell yourself, "I'll calm down when I know why. I'll rest when I know what happens. I'll be okay when I understand what God is doing." But Scripture quietly removes that condition. Trust begins where complete understanding ends. And that may be deeply uncomfortable for someone whose mind has learned to survive by anticipating. Because then the issue isn't simply, "How do I stop overthinking?" A deeper question appears. Can I feel safe without knowing everything? That question touches more than your thoughts. Touches your relationship with control. And control can wear very respectable clothing. Can look like responsibility. Can look like preparation. Can look like discernment. Can even look spiritual. You can spend days asking God for another sign, another confirmation, another feeling, another conversation, another indication, when perhaps God has already given you enough truth for the next step. Not the next 10. The next one. Sometimes the mind becomes loud because it is demanding information that life has not provided yet. And no amount of thinking can manufacture information you simply do not have. You cannot think your way into knowing someone else's heart with complete certainty. You cannot think your way into knowing exactly what will happen next year. You cannot think your way into controlling whether somebody stays. You cannot think your way into guaranteeing that every decision works out. You cannot think your way into a pain-free future. There comes a point where thinking stops being preparation and becomes an attempt to negotiate with uncertainty. And uncertainty does not negotiate. That's why Jesus' words in Matthew 6 are so confronting. He tells his listeners not to worry about tomorrow, saying that tomorrow will worry about itself and that each day has enough trouble of its own. Notice that he doesn't tell them tomorrow has no trouble. That would be unrealistic. He says today already has its own portion. In other words, you were never designed to carry tomorrow's weight with today's strength. But that is exactly what an overactive mind tries to do. It takes something that might happen next month, brings it into Tuesday afternoon, and asks Tuesday afternoon to emotionally survive it. Then it brings Thursday's conversation, next year's uncertainty, someone else's possible opinion, a decision you haven't even been asked to make yet. No wonder you feel overloaded. You are asking the present moment to hold responsibilities that don't belong to it. And maybe peace is not learning how to guarantee that tomorrow will be okay. Maybe peace is learning that you don't have to live tomorrow before it arrives. There is another layer, though, because sometimes the racing mind isn't trying to predict the future. Sometimes it's trying to repair the past. You replay what you said, what they said, what you should have noticed, what you should have done, how you should have responded. You create a better version of yourself in your imagination. The version who had the perfect answer, recognized the warning sign immediately, made the right decision, never trusted the wrong person, never became emotional, never missed the opportunity. And then you compare the person you actually were to the person you invented afterward. That comparison is unfair. Of course, the version of you standing after the event knows more. Hindsight has information your past self didn't have. But the mind can become cruel when it forgets that. It says, you should have known. Should you? Or do you only know now because you lived through it? There is wisdom in reflection. But reflection asks, what can I learn? Self-punishment asks, how could I have been so stupid? Those are not the same conversation. One produces maturity. The other produces shame. Philippians 4 verses 6-7 says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. I love the wording there. Guard your hearts and your minds. Because sometimes your mind needs guarding from its own insistence that it must solve everything tonight. Prayer in this passage isn't pretending nothing matters. It is bringing what matters somewhere. You are not being asked to become indifferent. You are being invited to stop carrying alone what can be brought before God. And there is a difference between praying about something and mentally holding on to it after prayer. Many of us do both. God, I'm giving this to you. And then 10 minutes later. But let me just think about it another 17 times. Maybe prayer isn't only speaking. Maybe sometimes prayer ends with refusing to reopen a case you have already placed in God's hands for the night. That might be a more realistic kind of surrender. You don't have to promise, I will never worry about this again. You may simply need to say, I have thought about this enough for today. There is humility in that sentence. Because an overactive mind often believes constant attention equals responsibility. But you can care deeply about something without thinking about it continuously. You can love someone without monitoring every shift in their behavior. You can care about your future without visiting it mentally every hour. You can take a decision seriously without interrogating yourself indefinitely. You can trust God while still having unanswered questions. One of the Psalms offers an image I think we overlook. Psalm 131 says, I have calmed and quieted myself. I am like a weaned child with its mother. That is such a different picture of spiritual maturity. Not a person who has finally figured everything out. Not someone holding a 10-year plan. Not someone who received every answer. Someone who has learned to become quiet in the presence of someone trustworthy. A child resting with its mother does not understand the household finances. The child does not know tomorrow's schedule. The child does not know how every need will be met. Its peace is relational before it is informational. And maybe that is one of the places God is inviting you. Not into ignorance. Not into denial. Into a kind of trust where His presence begins to matter more than your prediction. That doesn't happen because you shame yourself for thinking too much. It happens slowly. Practically. Sometimes when your mind starts spiraling, instead of asking, how do I stop thinking? What am I trying to make certain right now? Name it. I'm trying to make certain they're not upset with me. I'm trying to make certain I won't fail. I'm trying to make certain this relationship will work. I'm trying to make certain I made the right decision. I'm trying to make certain God will answer the way I hope. Then ask another question. Is certainty actually available to me right now? Sometimes the answer will be yes. Maybe there's a conversation you need to have. Maybe there's information you need to gather. Maybe there's a decision you've been avoiding. Do that. But sometimes the answer will be no. There is nothing else to know tonight. Nothing else to solve. Nothing else to rehearse. And at that point, continuing to think is not making you more prepared. It is simply making you more tired. That is where surrender becomes practical. Not, I don't care what happens, but I cannot control what happens by repeatedly imagining it, because every thought that enters your mind does not deserve a meeting. Some thoughts need to be noticed and allowed to pass. Some need to be challenged. Some need to become prayer. Some require action. And some are simply your mind asking the same frightened question in different clothes. You don't have to answer it every time. 2 Corinthians 10 verse 5 speaks about taking thoughts captive and making them obedient to Christ. That verse is sometimes used as though Christian maturity means never having troubling thoughts. But taking a thought captive assumes the thought arrived. The presence of a thought is not the same as agreement with it. You can think, everything is going to fall apart, and then respond, that is a fear. It is not a prophecy. You can think, they haven't replied because they're rejecting me, and say, that is one interpretation. It is not confirmed reality. You can think, if I make the wrong choice, my life is ruined, and answer, I am not powerful enough to destroy every possibility God can redeem. That is not positive thinking. That is refusing to treat every anxious thought as an authority. Your mind may be loud. It does not always mean your mind is right. And perhaps one of the deepest forms of spiritual maturity is learning to hear your thoughts without obeying all of them. Some nights you may still lie awake. Some mornings your mind may begin running before your feet touch the floor. Faith does not always make the mind instantly quiet, but it can slowly change what you do with the noise. You begin recognizing when reflection has become rumination. You begin noticing when planning has turned into prediction. You become aware of the moment responsibility turns into control. You stop asking your mind to solve what only time can reveal. You stop demanding explanations before allowing yourself to breathe. You pray about the thing, and sometimes you leave the thing there. Not perfectly. Maybe you pick it back up 15 minutes later. Then you put it down again. Maybe that is what surrender looks like for a while. Not one dramatic release. 100 small releases. I'll ask when I can. I don't know what happens next. I'll deal with what happens when it happens. I regret what I did. I'll learn from it instead of endlessly prosecuting myself. I don't know how God will answer, but I know I do not have to become my own God while I wait. That last one is difficult, because control can make you feel powerful for a moment, but eventually it asks you to carry a weight you were never meant to hold. The future, other people, outcomes, timing, every possibility, every consequence, every explanation. No human mind can carry all of that and remain at peace. So perhaps tonight, the goal isn't to force your mind to become completely silent. Perhaps the goal is simply to stop treating every thought like an emergency. You are allowed to leave some questions unanswered until morning. You are allowed to say, I don't know. You are allowed to let somebody misunderstand you until there is an appropriate time to talk. You are allowed to make the wisest decision you can without having perfect certainty. You are allowed to discover tomorrow when tomorrow arrives. And you are allowed to trust that God is still present in the parts of your life you cannot mentally organize. Maybe peace does not begin when there is nothing left to think about. There will always be something. Maybe peace begins when your mind finally realizes, I am not responsible for knowing everything. There are things to discern, things to confront, things to change, things to prepare for. But there are also things that belong to tomorrow, things that belong to other people, things that belong to time, and things that belong to God. You don't need to carry all 4 categories tonight. So if your mind has been running lately, don't hate yourself for it. Listen carefully. Ask what it is trying so desperately to protect you from. Then gently remind yourself that thinking is a tool. It was never meant to become your refuge. Your refuge has to be somewhere stronger than your ability to predict what happens next. Psalm 62 verse 5 says, Yes, my soul, find rest in God. My hope comes from Him. Not rest in having every answer. Not rest in perfect circumstances. Not rest in knowing how everything turns out. Rest in God. Perhaps that is the invitation underneath all this noise. Not to become a person who never thinks deeply, but to become a person who knows when thinking has reached its limit. And trust must begin. And when you reach that limit tonight, maybe you don't need another conclusion. Maybe you just need to whisper, God, I've taken this as far as my mind can take it. The rest belongs to you. And then, Selah. If this spoke to something your mind has been carrying quietly, leave a simple Selah in the comments. And if you know someone who has been trying to think their way into peace, share this with them. Subscribe to SELAH Chronicles if you want more conversations like this. Conversations that help us pause, understand what is happening within us, and learn to see it differently in the presence of God.